morning and welcome to the Haven Financial Group radio show. I'm Larry Kulvig, founder and CEO of the Haven Financial Group. Celebrating 10 years, Kim. Great to be with you once again. We got a lot to talk about, and not so much fun stuff, but just very important stuff. Talking finances with family and having a plan. That's what it's all about, right?
It certainly is. Right. First off, having a plan. Secondly, talking to the family about finances. I think that's a tough thing. I don't talk to my parents very much about their finances unless they ask questions or, and I'm an adult and they're adults and we still don't sit and talk about it. And I don't talk to my children all that much about it either. So maybe today we'll give people some suggestions and ideas on how to have those conversations because I think they're really important, aren't they, Larry?
Well, they are. And, not everybody communicates about finances very well. Sometimes money, it's sometimes not, I don't want to say hidden, but just not something you want to talk about openly with family or, compared to the Joneses and all that kind of stuff. So our family's the same way. It definitely is. But there just needs to be good communication. We're going to talk about a variety of things. So if you're listening today, feel free to give us a call at 612-805-8624 or visit us online at havenfinancialgroup.com. All kinds of retirement tools on the site, education class calendars. We teach a lot of classes, as you know. So again, thanks for listening this morning.
All right, Larry. So let's take a look at the theme today. It's family, finances, and retirement strategies. That's what we're calling this. We're going to chat a little bit about you and your spouse and the fact that retirement is really a team sport. And I love that labeling. And I think that really is true. We're going to talk about family financial stability and how that starts with you. Then we'll chat a little bit about taxes. You just can't talk about retirement without talking about taxes, and certainly not about the repercussions that taxes might have on your family as it relates to your retirement. And then finally, considerations before selling your home in retirement. There are tax ramifications, obviously, there, but there's also reasons maybe to sell or not to sell in an effort to help family. So let's start with talking about you and your spouse. I would imagine, Larry, you have a lot of people who come in, sit down, say, Larry, we're trying to put together a plan. But, we don't talk about this very often. And now I guess is the time we need to start talking.
Yes. Well, we know that retirement is more than just a personal milestone. It's, it's really it could be a legacy, a family decision. And, for spouses or significant others, there's oftentimes one personality that handles it and the other one doesn't, and the other one just relies on the other one to do it. But as I've mentioned in recent weeks, it's important for both of you to be involved to some degree. You don't have to be the expert. Maybe one takes the lead, but it's important that both are involved because there comes a day oftentimes where something happens and you want to be ready. As I've mentioned that I've seemed to have met with more widows and widowers this year than ever. And they hadn't been involved in any of the finances, the financial discussions, any of the investments. And then they were just left going, oh, no, now what do I do?
Sure.
And we know that, trying to talk about that stuff after you lose a loved one or especially a spouse isn't the time to be interviewing financial advisors and talking about it. So you want to be proactive with this stuff. You want to not be reactive. Start that communication right now. It may not be fun. It might be uncomfortable. But you got to start somewhere to get to somewhere.
So when a couple comes into Haven Financial Group and sits across from you, do you sometimes feel that you are a counselor?
Oh, most often. Yeah. I would say that happens several times a week.
I bet.
Sometimes there's surprises. Imagine that, where one spouse doesn't know about the other stuff. Or I've even had some over the years where they've been married for years and years, yet they have no idea what the other one even has. So there's some unusual relationships and situations out there, but it's best to be on the same page, of course.
Well, you talked about communication. So when you talk to these couples and you say, okay, we've got to start communicating, let's go through some of the points that you suggest they communicate about. Like, for example, creating a joint budget where they're both on the same page, I would assume.
Yeah, the good old B word for budget because it's so much fun. But it's important to have it, whether you're young, old, or no matter what age you're listening. Some sort of budget to hold you accountable. What are those expenses, the shared expenses, What are your goals? What are your objectives? What are your spending habits? So you can really manage them to the best of your ability. What are your expectations for retirement? When do you want to retire? What is the timeline that's associated with it? What are your goals? All of these are part of the conversations that we might initiate this to get the conversations going. And from there, we're going to take a lot of notes, and, we can come back to these notes at a later time, whether it weeks, months, years, to say, we have a plan. Here's why we came up with a plan. Remember when we first got together? Remember when we discussed this? And it's important to have good records, to hold each other accountable. And that's our job oftentimes as advisors and partners to those folks that we help.
I would imagine that you start to talk about the idea that if maybe in their working lives they've had separate accounts, it's time to start to bring those things together.
That's important in a variety of different ways. Number one, from an estate planning background, where if you're married and you don't have them both names on the accounts. Now, I'm not talking IRAs because those are individual, but say a joint brokerage account, a joint savings account, or something of that nature, and both your names are not on there, and one of the spouse passes, you may have to go through a living probate just to access the account. We hate to see that, and that's really a pain. So there's a variety of reasons why you would want joint accounts on some accounts. And then maybe your spouse isn't working, but you are. Take advantage of spousal IRAs. Any chance you can get to put money away into an individual retirement account. I don't know any reason necessarily why you wouldn't do it. Yeah, a lot of times people don't know that can be a consideration. So again, the budget, joint accounts, short-term, long-term objectives.
Mm-hmm.
What are your goals? And again, it's important to write those goals down. For years, I had mentors that would say, write the goals down, timeline. And thankfully, I started doing that years and years ago. And you know what? It really, really, really helps because you can go back to that and it reminds you what those goals are. And
Sure.
you know what? If you're a goal setter, you want to accomplish those goals. So it really creates a motivation to do what you say you're going to do.
Another thing it seems to me, Larry, because we talk about this so frequently, but when a couple comes in and sits down across from you and says, we're figuring out these details associated with our retirement, not only do they need to talk about the money, but they have to talk about that timeline, like maybe making decisions about Social Security. Maybe one of you should draw at one point and one at a different point. You talk a lot about just when you want a retirement to retire and the idea of maybe even staggering that. There's lots of time issues, right?
Yeah, the element of time becomes really important because life's calendar doesn't always cooperate with our calendar. You may think, or we may think we're going to work till 67 or 70, yet some things like life happen, the pink slip shows up, your health doesn't cooperate. So factoring in earlier retirement, maybe mid-retirement, late retirement, just to see what happens if the unknown happens. And we know that happens quite often. I can never say enough, establish an emergency fund, talk through not only the monies and the investments, but the insurance aspects, life insurance, health insurance. I just read this past summer, there was an acquaintance of mine where the boyfriend got in a car accident and they had 3 kids together. They weren't married. They had no health insurance. So maybe life insurance, talk through all of those different things because what you don't know can hurt you. And we don't want those things to have ill effects on us just because we're not talking or addressing the issue.
Right. And what do you do about those couples who come in and one of the two couples says, well, he or she has handled this all of our lives and I just don't want to be involved?
Well, I stressed that what I already said that, yeah, but what if he is not here? And you can reverse the roles too. What if she is not here? Because I do see that as well. So the what if, you can play the what if game and what their answer can only be, yeah, that's a good point. I probably should have some awareness and understanding of what's going on, or at least have a good partner, a professional, where you can go to and lean on. That's not what you want to be doing when you lose a loved one. You want to establish that. And so when folks tell me that my spouse is a do-it-yourselfer investor, that's perfectly fine. And maybe they have passion to do that. But I said, cultivate a relationship with somebody, a partner, a professional like us or somebody. So when you're not here or able to do it, that you already are prepared to address that issue at that time.
Absolutely. Well, I think you've just said what I hope people walk away from this segment with the idea that communication between the spouses or your partner, whomever it might be, is so important. But what's equally as important is having a partner, a financial partner with you to sort of walk through this. This can be a very emotional kind of situation to try to deal with these finances and talk about them out loud. But of course, then there's also the financial aspect of it and the best advice that you can possibly get to make retirement. It's very best. It's very, very best. So the folks at Haven Financial Group would love to be that partner with you. If you'd like to sit down and talk to someone, the number 612 rather, 504-8400. Give them a call. Let them know that you heard us here on the radio talking about family finances and planning for your future. The number again is 612-504-8400. Coming up next, we're going to talk about family financial stability and how so frequently that begins with you. We'll explain right here on the Haven Financial Group radio show.